Okay, now we're in chapter 1.2. There are two methods for collecting data: observational studies and designed experiments. An observational study measures the value of the response variable without attempting to influence the value of either the response or explanatory variables. That is, in an observational study, the researcher observes the behavior of the individuals without trying to influence the outcome of the study. If a researcher assigns the individuals in a study to a certain group and intentionally changes the value of the explanatory variable, then the value of the response variable then records, the value of the response variable for each group, the researcher is conducting a designed experiment. Okay, so here's the question: which is better, a designed experiment or an observational study? Well, let's look at this and see if we can tell. So, researchers wanted to determine the long-term benefits of the influenza vaccine on seniors aged 65 years and older. The researchers looked at records of over 36,000 seniors for 10 years. The seniors were divided into two groups. Group 1 were seniors who chose to get a flu vaccination shot, and Group 2 were seniors who chose not to get a flu vaccination shot. After observing the seniors for 10 years, it was determined that seniors who get flu shots are 27% less likely to be hospitalized for pneumonia or influenza and 48% less likely to die from pneumonia or the flu. Wow! The results of this study sound great, right? All seniors should go out and get a flu shot. Well, not necessarily. The authors were concerned about confounding. They were concerned that lower hospitalization and death rates may have been due to something other than the flu shot. Could it be that seniors who get flu shots are more health conscious or able to get to the clinic more easily? Does race, income, or gender play a role in whether one might contract and possibly die from influenza? So we have to worry about confounding. Confounding in a study occurs when the effects of two or more explanatory variables are not separated. Therefore, any relation that may exist between an explanatory variable and the response variable may be due to some other variable or variables not accounted for in the study. Confounding is potentially a major problem with observational studies. Often, the cause of confounding is a lurking variable. A lurking variable is an explanatory variable that was not considered in a study, but that affects the value of the response variable in the study. In addition, lurking variables are typically related to any explanatory variables considered in the study. In that previous flu study we were just talking about, possible lurking variables might be age, health status, the mobility of the senior. Even after accounting for all the potential lurking variables in this study, the authors were still careful to conclude that getting an influenza shot is associated with a lower risk of being hospitalized. The authors used the term associated instead of saying the flu shot caused the lower risk because the study was observational. Observational studies do not allow a researcher to claim causation, only association. A confounding variable is an explanatory variable that was considered in a study whose effect cannot be distinguished from a second explanatory variable in the study. The big difference between lurking variables and confounding variables is that, Okay, listen. Lurking variables are not considered in the study, whereas confounding variables are measured in the study. The bottom line is that both lurking variables and confounding variables can confound the results of a study. So a researcher should be mindful of their potential existence. Okay, so now we've got three major categories of observational studies. We've got the cross-sectional studies. These are observational studies that collect information about individuals at a specific point in time or over a very short period of time. Case control studies. These are retrospective, meaning that they require individuals to look back in time or require the researcher to look at existing records. In case control studies, individuals who have certain characteristics are matched with those that do not. And then the third type are cohort studies. A cohort study first identifies a group of individuals to participate in the study, and we call that the cohort, the individuals participating in the study. The cohort is then observed over a long period of time. Over this time period, characteristics about the individuals are recorded. Because the data is collected over time, cohort studies are prospective. All right, let's do an example. Let's determine whether each of the following studies depict an observational study or an experiment. If the researchers conducted an observational study, determine the type of observational study, right? We've got cross-sectional, case control, cohort. Okay, so let's look at A. Researchers wanted to assess the long-term psychological effects on children evacuated during World War II. They obtained a sample of 169 former evacuees and a control group of 43 people who were children during the war but who were not evacuated. The subjects' mental states were evaluated using questionnaires. It was determined that the psychological well-being of the individuals was adversely affected by evacuation. Okay, so first question is, was it an observational study or an experiment? What do you think? Yeah, it was just observational, right? They didn't change anything during the study themselves. They only looked at records, so they observed what happened. Okay, and so what type of study was it? Case-controlled study, right? Okay, a case control means it's retrospective, right? They look back in time at existing records. Okay, let's look at B. Xylitol has proven effective in preventing dental cavities, when included in food or gum. A total of 75 Peruvian children were given milk with and without xylitol and were asked to evaluate the taste of each. Overall, the children preferred the milk flavored with xylitol. Okay? This was a designed experiment because they actually did something in the study, right? They gave some kids milk with xylitol and some kids milk without xylitol. Okay, a total of 974 homeless women in the Los Angeles area were surveyed to determine their level of satisfaction with the health care provider by shelter clinics versus the health care provided by government clinics. The women reported greater quality satisfaction with the shelter and outreach clinics compared to the government clinics. Observational, right? All they did was survey the people and observed what they said. Okay, so now what kind of observational study was it? What do you think? Cross-sectional, right? Because in cross-sectional studies, they collect information about individuals at a specific point in time or over a very short period of time. Okay, so they went there and they just asked these people what they felt about the various clinics. Okay, what about D? The Cancer Prevention Study is funded and conducted by the American Cancer Society. Its goal is to examine the relationship among environmental and lifestyle factors on cancer cases by tracking approximately 1.2 million men and women. Study participants completed an initial study questionnaire in 1982, providing information on a range of lifestyle factors such as diet, alcohol and tobacco use, occupation, medical history, and family cancer history. These data have been examined extensively in relation to cancer mortality. Vital status of study participants is updated biennially. Cause of death has been documented for over 98% of all deaths that have occurred. Mortality follow-up of the CPS2 participants is complete through 2002 and is expected to continue for many years. Okay, it's observational, right? They're not changing things to see if they can give people cancer or not, right? That would not be very ethical. They're just observing what has happened with these people. So what kind of observational study is it? Right, cohort, right? Because cohort is observed over a long period of time. And so the initial study was in 1982, the initial questionnaire, and it's through 2002 and it's continuing, right? So it's a cohort study. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. See you next time.